That's not
Josh
a
Coon
real-
wants to know,
People
been
would
listening
in.
since episode 1. What is Bruce's favorite episode and why?
Okay, I get asked this question an awful lot, and it is the same answer. Here's my favorite episode was the Houston wrestling
God
episode.
damn it. I knew you were going to fucking say it.
Well, yeah, because it's one of our most downloaded episodes of all time.
Nah.
Next to TNA. And that's crazy, right? The shows that you didn't want to do TNA, remember?
No, I wanted to do TNA. The fans
No, you didn't
want it.
No, you didn't.
No, I did.
You hated it
No, you're confusing it with Houston. I hated Houston.
because you didn't know anything about it.
And you hated the idea of doing No Holds Barred. And,
Right.
and I was campaigning for No Holds Barred. You were campaigning for Houston. We both wanted to do TNA, but it just never won a poll. And this is back when all of the topics were determined by a poll. And yes, we want to bring polls back. Unfortunately, with Vince McMahon requiring Bruce to work 22 and a half hours a day, that means we have a lot less time to record, and we've got to sort of plan ahead and put some of these in a pocket.
Please don't put that out there. Seriously, man. If he finds out that I'm not working the other, man,
You're being
you're gonna
serious
fuck
shit.
me there.
You're being serious shit if he knows I got an hour and a half of personal time.
Yeah, if he ever heard that game, hey, talk to you, pal. What the hell's this shit? I hear you're only doing 22 and a half hours. God damn it.
You know, my favorite story that I think gets overlooked that really resonates with me more now than ever, because I know the crazy schedule you're on, is you would talk about back in the day when, you know, before the commercial. I mean, when we're flying commercial, this is before we have private jets, and Vince would be driving along, and for hours and hours and hours, you know, you've been up 20 hours, and he would say, he's driving, get your notebook out, pal. Let's do some work. So you got to start working. You would fall asleep, wake back up. He would keep going again, fall asleep, wake back up. He would keep going again. And then when he drops you off at your house, as you're exhausted, can barely keep your eyes open, he would look at you and say, did I get it all?
Yep.
And to me, it's like, that is the most Vince McMahon story ever. Now that I know, when you're like, well, I got a conference call starting in an hour. I'm like, it's 11 at night. Yep. Should be done by 4. Let's tape at 6. And that's the life we're living right now, where you go blink for 2 hours and then ta-da, Conrad's up your ass to tape another show.
Yeah. And to give you a peek inside of my world, I live by my calendar more than ever. And I will have all of this stuff, and then you and I will text. We don't even get a talking. This is the most we get a talk, folks, during the week. This is like the only time we can actually have a physical conversation. And I'll text and go, okay, I've got this. I've got like 2.5 hours during these times. I have 2.5 hours during these times. Now, I can't guarantee this one on Thursday because I might have to. Yeah, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. But going back to the question, my favorite's Houston, and here's why.
Ugh.
Because no one picked it in a poll. It lost every poll. Even when it got down to no holds barred in Houston, it lost by 1%. Or actually literally a couple votes. But it was one of our most downloaded, and it's the one that I think a lot of our listeners have commented on that's their favorite. Out of it came so many things. A lot of it came the basis for, you know, that Vice Land and getting behind the scenes when they heard the Gino Hernandez stories I talked about. And some other projects in the works that from that one episode created so much outside and beyond the podcast that it was my favorite. And it was because it was just the way that I got in the business and my love for the business and the origin of it all.
I think my favorite is the Jim Cornette one, just because we had recently changed the format on the show where it was less freestyling and more of a real research format. That probably started with the Vader episode, but I'll never forget you were at that little conference table in my office as I'm working on the format for Jim Cornette. And we're trying to figure out, once we've got most of the format put together, where should we put some commercials in there? And you had told me the George the Rat story before.
Oh,
and I
God.
said, we've got to put the George the Rat story in here. Where would that fit? So we're sort of talking timeline about where I should insert that, because I would have lots of, you know, research notes, a quote from a shoot interview or a quote from a book or whatever. But I just knew this George the Rat story, and that was never anywhere. So we had to figure out sort of where it went in the timeline of events. And once that was done, I looked at you and said, hey, what if we say that George died of mesothelioma, and it is the hardest I've ever seen you fucking laugh ever, to the point that I think you actually fell on the floor in my office out of the chair laughing. It was the most extended period of laughter I've seen you do until we had that train sponsor a few months ago. And when we could
Those
not,
very serious issues,
very serious, but for some reason it just tickled us, and we were laughing so hard about the train thing that we had to stop. Like, you had to go to the bathroom and pee. But when we got going again, and I just tried to power through and transition that Ron Simmons was jumping off the train because his contract was not renewed. We lost it again and tried to keep it together. So to me, the placement of where we're going to put the ads and how we would just get the other one tickled, those are my favorite episodes.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And that's what people tend to pick out, but they remember. So it's good.